You're listening to Death of the Reader. Flex and Herds here for your Murder Mystery World Tour. And we are here discussing a book with many titles by NISIOISIN. If you have, understandably, just flinched in fear at what I'd said, yes. Yes, indeed.
Then you're me.
This book is in its latest English iteration called Decapitation, Kubikiri Cycle, The Blue Savant, and the Nonsense User. But Zaragoto Book 1 is probably the easiest way to contextualize it.
Contextualize, I guess, is a different thing. I've been calling it Decapitation.
Yes, I would call it Decapitation as well. That is the terminology we will use.
Because that's what happens. Mm-hmm. Like, that's what happens in the book. People get decapitated. So, like, it's just easier to remember.
Or do they?
Or do they? That's for you to figure out as we go in the mystery.
So I've got a page of information that I've researched here. Well, it's just a text document on my computer, but it's compiled by several wikis and a few questions of friends that says that NISIOISIN is one of the most successful mangaka or creators of manga in Japan, responsible for big series like Monogatari, others like Katanagatari, Pretty Boy Detective Club, which is why we're doing this entire nonsense, Zaragoto, the anime adaptation of this particular series. It just keeps going. And he has a very eclectic, chaotic style with lots of first-person monologue, lots of pointless detours.
There's lots of roundaboutness to the dialogue and the description. And can I tell you, I've been doing my own research into this because, like, I'm vaguely familiar with the Bakemonogatari series, but I haven't watched it. So I want to know what kind of person is writing this horrifying book that we're diving into today. I've learned that apparently when he was an aspiring mangaka, he realized that he couldn't draw very well. So he decided to write novels instead because he figured that no one would care if his handwriting was bad. And he goes so far as to say, apparently, according to his Wikipedia page, that dialogue is like the most important part of his writing. And I choose to interpret that as he spends the most time writing dialogue and internal monologue. Like, rather than using regular narration to lay out what's going on in a scene, he'll have his character perceive what's going on and then go on a diatribe about the various ways in which he could interpret what's going on. But it's not like, what does the color of the paint mean? It's like, I had decided not to act, which is inherently allowing something to occur and is not allowing things to occur, an element of agency in and of itself. And it's like, yeah, sure. Why not? Like, what you're saying is true, but
this book is really interesting. It, like, you can tell its debut in a lot of senses,
and it won an award. Apparently, it won the Mephisto Award.
It's very clunky. One of the things that was most obvious to me was the way that he will always describe things way too much until suddenly he decides to do something actually evocative. But you're like, wait, hold on, no, that's the one that needed more description. Go back to that.
He leaves you hanging as to what that phrase means until probably a future novel, honestly. There's a lot of things in this book that are not actually explained, mostly to do with the main character, who has a mysterious backstory, which mirrors that of the author himself.
What are you suggesting, that E-Chan here might have a bit of a self-insert quality?
I refuse to call him E-Chan, but yes, obviously. Like, he's obviously this is a 20-year-old writer writing what he knows, which is great. And the character is like, his whole thing is that he's not a genius. He doesn't want to, like, leave a mark on the world, but he's kind of drawn to do it because somebody has to. And for actual evidence, he attended a university program, like NISIOISIN did, but dropped out before graduating, much in the same way that his protagonist does. Also, I just want to, just so we have this out of the way, he gets hit on by basically every female character in the book.
Yeah, that's every character.
That's every character except for one.
There is a gap between the style of flirtation that Shinya is expressing and everyone else, but you know, I choose to believe that this is equal opportunity. It's not like this book would do anything silly like spend 14 pages whacking on feminism.
Whoa. Although it is interested in classism. Shall we talk about the actual story for a moment? So this story is set, as with a lot of Agatha Christie inspired by books are, on an island run by a rich woman. She brings geniuses to her island because she likes to hang out with them, question mark.
Yes.
There's a scholar, a painter, a techie, which is Kunagisa, the main character's like friend, attaché, girlfriend, question mark. She keeps trying to get him to sleep with her. It's a whole thing. There's all these geniuses, and then there's the characters that the geniuses brought along with them, and there's the four maids. So the book very much draws this distinction between two types of people on the island. That there's these geniuses, and Iria, who is a genius by her wealth. She's like in the same class as everybody else, even if she's not actually a genius. And then there's the non-geniuses, the maids and servants, effectively.
The other interesting thing about this collection of geniuses is we do have the painter, Kanami, who is our victim so far in this story. And I feel like this is actually the most interesting point of self-insertion.
Sure.
Because, you were saying that the reason that Nisio switched over to like writing light novels instead of doing manga was because he couldn't draw, and the antagonist character that we have so far, Akane Sonoyama, is constantly chastising Kanami's ability as painting as not like real genius. It's not a real talent. Anyone could do it.
Yeah, that's where the kind of grayness of the novel comes in. And it's a question that the novel's going to kind of ask you about, like, why do we brand certain people as geniuses and certain other people not? Because the real twist is that our nonsense user, despite telling us he's not a genius and everybody else saying he's a waste of space and he should just go and die, he's our detective, right? Like, he's the one who, through simple truths and basic observational skills, is going to put things together. What do you make of our fortune teller, by the way? She seems to be able to literally tell the future.
I mean, obviously, as the mystery solver in the story, I have to say that it's nonsense, but also having seen NISIOISIN write several things before against my will, I would not be surprised if we're just going to get into a full world of metaphysics and pretend like it isn't existing in the background of this murder mystery.
There's sort of a question of whether she's using some sort of parlor trick to, cold read people, or maybe she does research and can, predict how people will think based on their past experiences. But
the novel sort of half-heartedly taps on this idea that like cold reading exists and that you could just kind of make these suggestions, but it also doesn't spend a lot of time on it, and it leaves its own ideas kind of hanging in the air in a strange way.
I mean, they bring up the idea of ESP specifically, which is extrasensory perception.
Yeah, it's kind of like accepted that there are two different types of psychic power that people can have, and also telepathy maybe sometimes.
The mistress of the island, everything was seen from her. She's quite authoritative. Like, as soon as the murder happens, she almost seems to treat it like a little bit of a game. Like, she's gonna, push people around and solve it. And it's only through our protagonist intervening that the equilibrium of, who's suspected and who's not is restored.
Well, I mean, you say that, but we also have our protagonist just going in, tampering the crime scene, dragging the body somewhere else, doing a running jump over the main thing that sets people's alibis.
See, I wasn't interested in interrogating his actions, but this is true. He does a lot of very crime scene breaking things, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, they even take the body and bury it in the woods or something. If they were actually planning on calling the police, which again, the headmistress says we cannot call the police. It's just something we don't do here. They'd ruin everything. This character kind of denying the existence of the police allows our protagonist to get a bit more hands-on.
Yeah, it is very strange because at once there are the very clear stakes of, oh no, what if someone kills again? But
yeah,
the novel has almost gone to lengths to establish the lack of stakes. We'll keep the police out of here, they'll ruin the fun. Yeah, we'll leave the crime scene unattended. Yeah, we'll just kind of lock someone up and presume that because we're all geniuses, our understanding of how the murderer may or may not act now is perfectly sealed away by us locking the prime. What is going on with that? How does locking up the prime suspect prevent anyone else from killing?
So it's a mafia thing, is what it is. It's the idea that if you were playing a game of mafia and you had the power to lock someone away for a night in your turn of mafia,
yes,
where they couldn't be affected by anything or that you would be able to watch or whatever, then if someone kills that person, then you would know that that person is not the killer.
Don't get me wrong. I definitely do understand that. But in the last section of the show today, when we're talking about the mystery, I have some complaints to make about quote unquote genius.
Which genius?
Exactly. This is Death of the Reader, your murder mystery world tour here on 2SCR 107.3. We are talking Decapitation, the first novel in NISIOISIN's Zaragoto series. We'll be back with more of that in just a second. This is 2SCR 107.3. You're listening to Death of the Reader, Flex here for your Murder Mystery World Tour. International crime writing festivals are some of the best book celebrations in the world, with huge events like Bloody Scotland and ButcherCon attracting the most passionate and friendly group of nerds you will ever see. Here in Australia, we're lucky to have both Terra Australis in Tasmania and in our own backyard, the BAD Sydney Crime Writers Festival. BAD sees the world's best crime writers gather at the State Library of New South Wales for a weekend of interrogating and enjoying the genre, and I am thrilled to be joined today by the artistic director of the festival, Catherine Du Peloux Menagé. It's so good to have you back, Catherine. Welcome to Death of the Reader.
Thank you. It's always great to be here.
You know, last year was the first time we spoke on the show, and I had to ask the basic questions like, why'd you call it BAD Sydney Crime Writers Festival? But I've graduated.
You've moved on.
And I think that one of the most interesting things about this year's lineup on the festival, other than the fact that Herds and I are hosting a panel, which we'll get to.
Which is crucial.
Yes, absolutely crucial, is that I feel like there's a real key set of topics that the festival has been interrogating each time I've been over the past few years, looking at hate crimes and discrimination, the fun of the genre, and also this sense of where the genre goes next. Why do you think those are the key topics that the festival keeps tackling each year it runs?
Well, I think they're the important topics. I mean, this year, for the first time, we've got a theme, and the theme is a place for every crime story and a crime story for every place. And anybody who pays attention to the federal government's arts policy will know that that's our adaptation of their A Place for Every Story and a Story for Every Place. And what we're really about is not just saying, come and hear fiction, crime fiction writers, because it is very hard to get international people to come here. We nearly got a couple of people this year, but we've got some Kiwis. Yes. Actually, they're international. Got 4 Kiwis, or maybe even 5 Kiwis.
And only one of them lives in Melbourne.
Yeah, well, that's true, actually. I think that's pretty good. So what we're really trying to do is look incredibly broadly at crime. Where's the genre going?
Yeah.
Well, that's because the genre is evolving all the time. I mean, I've read my first 2 trans crime novels. Maybe you've read more, but I really hadn't read any until about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So, and what I certainly see is as soon as there's a topic that is an issue, a topic, an area that is of real importance, bang, in it goes into crime fiction almost immediately. And in an accessible way that anybody can read and anybody can enjoy and think about.
Yeah, and I think it's also so fascinating because we do have that sense where obviously because crime fiction is dealing with the grimier parts of life that there's less of a barrier to including those sorts of details. But then when we get to things like the No Longer Getting Away with Murder panel, we're now also looking at kind of the implications of that rather than just the fictionalization of that.
What I've also find interesting is people's lived experience of crime.
Yeah.
So the title of that session comes from a book called Getting Away with Murder, and it's crime. I mean, the other thing that I'm looking forward to, because I know nothing about it, is the session about what happens when you get arrested. Like, if you accidentally ran over somebody, what would happen? Do you know?
No, I don't think most people would.
No, I mean, obviously the police would come, but what would they do? Would they take you away in handcuffs? So I thought that process was a really interesting one.
Yeah.
And again, what we've done is to have lived experience.
I think one of the really fun things that the festival engages with is that sense of crossing the true crime to fictional crime boundary and talking about where that overlaps. One of the best sessions last year was the one that Michael Muhammad Ahmad, Sarah Ayub, and goodness, I've forgotten the other 2 guests, but that session was really fantastic. Michael Muhammad Ahmad is back with 2 more sessions of that flavor this year.
Yeah. Well, so he's talking, what I've called his session Wild West, question mark. So is it, is that the only stuff that happens in Western Sydney? Drive-by shootings, et cetera, obviously not.
Yeah.
And we've got Shankari Chandran, who won the Miles Franklin, and who's going to talk to us about that, along with Mohammed and Winnie Dunn. It's really looking at that intersection between perceptions and realities. The other thing that Mohammed's doing is actually part of a bigger topic is along the lines of a place for every crime story and a crime story for every place. I wanted to get 4 different views of that topic. So it's not an unusual thing for a writers' festival to do, but we've never done it. So we've got 4 writers, including Michael Mohammed Ahmad, talking about what does it mean for you? They're talking from their perspectives, their particular perspectives. So I think he's going to talk about Western Sydney. Julie Jansen is an Indigenous writer, is First Nations writer, who has written the first Indigenous crime novel to be written for a long time, Maduka, the River Serpent. So I'm assuming that's what she's going to focus on. Chris Hammer writes rural, but not just rural. He does some urban books as well, but he really writes rural Australia incredibly well.
Yeah.
And his latest book, I don't know if you've had a chance to read it.
It's sat at the top of my to-read
The
pile,
7.
staring me down every day.
Oh, yeah. Look, it is. And this one is fascinating because it's looking at water.
And then the last one, Ashley Blunt. What's Ashley going to talk about?
Ashley's going to talk about the internet as a place for crime, the dark web as a place for crime.
See, Ashley as a writer is really spoiled for choice for this panel. Like dark mode really went in a lot of places, and her own journey as a writer's gone in a lot of places, like a podcast with James Mackenzie Watson.
Yeah. So that's why I thought they made really interesting, contrasting perspectives, and that's what makes a good session of addresses by 4 different people.
Yes.
But it's a bit new for us, though. But that is exciting. I mean, the other thing that is completely new is the literary death.
I was just about to say, I didn't know that this was a series until I heard about it at the launch night for the program this year.
Yeah, well, I came across it a couple of years ago, I think it was, at Sydney Writers' Festival. And I was hoping to go and I couldn't. And then I looked at it again and I thought, death match, literally. Could we put crime in
The link
that?
makes itself.
Yeah, it's it's not hard work. And it is a really fun thing. I mean, I think Adrian Todd Zuniga, who started it, really saw it at the beginning as a way of getting writers to read, of getting the written word out there, but in an oral form. And it's worked really well all over the world for him. So we've got, 4 very different writers, and they're in teams. They do a bit of reading. Then they've got 3 judges who pick at them on topics like my favorite theme is intangibles.
Oh.
Like it could be, I think your hair's a bit long. Or, I think just above the ear, or what about a busk? So it can be anything. Then there's literary merit, and then there's performance. I have a feeling Candice Fox might do really well on the old performance.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Candice seems like she's made for this event.
I think so. The first person I thought of when I thought of it was Candice.
And then finally, I've been waiting.
Saving the best till last.
Oh goodness, I've had so many authors every time I come to bad going, oh, which panel are you hosting, Felix? And I will say, none of them yet.
Oh, I'm
sorry,
Felix.
Listen, you don't have to apologize to me. You have to apologize to Ben Hobson, Solari Gentile, Matthew Spence. But finally, No Escape, Closed Circle Mysteries. We're going to be talking with Benjamin Stevenson, Michael Trent, and Michelle Prack. What finally drew you across the line to convince you to trust us with the panel?
Oh, come on. Well, I met you properly, I think, because I think when we met last year, the program was already kind of done. And this year I thought, this bloke, well, these blokes, although I met you first, could do something really good. And then I listened to the program as well, and the show as well. And I thought, well, there we are. And I know you love a closed circle.
Oh, yes.
And I thought, let's give him some very different circles. So, I mean, obviously Benjamin Stevenson,
yes, that title explains itself.
Yeah, we don't really need to go any further. But the others are also, also closed, and for whatever reason. So one is on a station in WA, I think, where there's a flood, and the other, Michelle Prack's book, is more of a thriller, but with a similar thing. They're locked in a country pub,
very much trapped by the rain.
Very much trapped by the rain.
Who will show up? Who comes out of the storm?
And you will never get the ending.
Oh, challenge!
I don't. Yeah. Well, okay. I'll ask you if you did, but I didn't. I mean, the twist. It was good, really good, I thought.
I'm very excited for that. Well, Catherine, thank you so much for joining us here on Death of the Reader. It's wonderful to be a part of the festival this year.
And many more to come with you in them.
Oh, here's hoping. This is your Murder Mystery World Tour. We will have details up at the website, 2ser.com, or you can head to badsydney.com to find out more about the festival. We're going to jump back in to Decapitation in just a second. You're listening to 2SER 107.3. You're listening to Death of the Reader, Flex and Herds here. We are talking about Decapitation from NISIOISIN's Zaragoto series. We are reading up to and including Fourth Day, Part 1, One Decapitation, the first novel in NISIOISIN's debut murder mystery series. And did you know, Herds, that after an 18-year break or something like that, there's actually a new Zaragoto book out this year?
What? What for?
I don't know.
Was this some kind of cunning plan by us to jump on the hype train?
Slightly. I'll confess. I did know about this. This is why I suggested that you make us suffer through this book, because that's what we're doing. We are suffering. The new book is called Kidnap Kidding.
Kidnap Kidding?
The Blue Savant and the Nonsense User's Daughter.
Daughter? Oh, no.
So I'm terrified.
Yes, they finally got together. Yep, okay.
Anyway, let's not think about that too much. I'm already horrified. Can I say, Herds, I've spoken a few times on the show about my note-taking system. Normally, most of my books are pink and yellow. Pink being motive clues, yellow being mechanical clues.
Sure.
And then I also put blue for things I like and red for things that I don't like.
And it's all blue, right? It's all blue. You love this book.
Let me
no
go
issues.
Let me go find the one blue note that I have.
What are all the red notes for? Like, there's lots to complain about in this book. Don't get me wrong, but like,
it's so much.
I'd love to know what specifically you're highlighting in your notes book.
Just every time NISIOISIN tries to get a character smarter than him to say something smart.
Yes, this is true.
And just swings for the fences and misses. It is at once the best and worst part of this book.
Yeah, it's completely absurd.
Like, oh my goodness. The entire scene where we start complaining about the goals of feminism, and it ends with the line, well, no, not women particularly. Smoking is bad for your health. And she retorts, health is bad for your smoking. There's that classic genius wit, I thought.
It's it.
What? No!
In the words of the book itself, pardon me, mademoiselle, did you just utter something insane? Yeah, I've got that highlight as the best line in the book because it summarizes most of what the characters say. Yeah, there's a lot of that where there are even passages that are like quoted, like lots of people highlight them that are just nonsense.
My other favorite one is where they're talking about this program that Kunagisa is working on that'll convert a book into music.
Yes.
And it sounds like all you're going to get is like a summary of the text in order as like musical notes. So if the word is dance, it would go the note D, the note A,
yes.
Skip a note, and then go CE.
Well, obviously, you have to figure out what note N corresponds to. You have to invent a note.
Exactly,
but yeah,
exactly.
The point is, of course, that what it would put out is just
someone
garbage.
asks, what programming language are you using? Visual Basic or C? I don't know a lot about computer programming, but the way that reads to me is like, are you using a bicycle or a tank?
It's a good question. The worst part is that she's supposed to be the sympathetic techie genius. She's not even like one of those.
She's supposed to be sympathetic?
It's cute. It's what every man wants. A cute, Sugoi, blue-haired anime girl. You have to take her to bed. You have to do up her hair. And she asks you if you want to bang her. And you say no because you're a nice guy. And that's...
Was that actually what was happening? Was she actually petitioning for lewdness?
It's bizarre. A charitable reading might say that this is the whole point of the book, that the geniuses are actually the dumb ones and the protagonist, who is the non-genius, is actually the smart one. But that is the charitable reading, and I will not back down from that. From that level of classification. And it spends an awful lot of time making that point, if that is what it's making.
But the thing that's nice about this, Herds, is it means that mystery-wise, I don't actually have that many notes.
What do you mean?
You know, we've got switching of cognitive channels. We've got the fact that operating systems like multiple personalities for a computer, people having no prides, links or attachments, you know, individuals that are selected from a small sect. I think, Herds, we are dealing with a multiple personality problem.
Oh, damn.
That is my theory for today's murder mystery world tour.
Okay, let's lay out, because we could talk around the mystery for a really long time, because the mystery, let's be real, it's not that important. But the actual contents of the case are that there has been a decapitation during the night. There was an earthquake, And Shinya goes to check on his painter friend and says, "Oh my goodness, you okay during this earthquake?" And she says, "I'm okay, but some paint spilled."
Yes.
And so we come in the morning and find that there is a river of paint that is uncrossable. It's literally nobody can get across the
running
paint.
jump and get any further than halfway.
Any further than a 19-year-old boy. Couldn't do it. And this painter's headless body is beyond the river of paint. So I guess I would love for you to tell me how we can break this unbreakable seal of paint that nobody saw fall over at some point during the night.
My theory is, Herds, the triplets,
Yes, the three maids.
they are in on a scheme together. There is a mute one of them.
Teriko.
And I reckon that basically our victim, Kanami, was asked to read something about the paint spilling into a recording that was played over the phone to Shinya.
Was she rehearsing for a play or something?
No, maybe someone, either the mute sister or one of the other sisters acting as their mute sister, was like, "Oh, could you read this out for me?"
No, hold on. Let's get this straight, just so we understand our maid archetypes here. Teriko is the cold mute one. Akari is the fiery tsundere one. And Hikari is the demure one that the protagonist is really into. And that's how we clarify them. Anyway, yes, continue.
So my theory is that Hikari is going to be the lead culprit here, probably acting as Teruko.
Okay.
Because we obviously have to punish the protagonist, I-chan.
Stop calling him that. Please.
Why?
I mean, babe, call him the nonsense user.
I need you to understand, Herds, it causes me pain as well.
It's so bad.
But if people aren't reading this book along with us so that they can enjoy the suffering, they need to receive at least a slice of the torment we're going through.
I don't want to call him I-chan. The worst part is...
You don't have to, but
I will.
Can I
tell you, the worst part is I've seen reviews online that call him Lee-chan because they think it's an L when it's a capital I. Although maybe it is an L. You know, maybe I'm the wrong one. Either way, it's awful.
No, it's an I.
Good.
Because it's
very
a pun,
annoying.
because it's first person. It's I-chan.
This is his first novel, Flex. You can't be so cruel.
I can't be so cruel.
What's happening in the story?
Basically, he is going to have to suspect the one that he's interested in as punishment for not being interested in Kunagisa.
Oh my goodness. It's like Doki Doki Literature Club.
I don't know what that is.
What do you mean?
I'm just going to go along with it.
Throw this man in the bin. He doesn't even know what's happening.
You might think to yourself, am I implicating the housemaids in this story against Nox's Decalogue? Yes, absolutely. I fully expect NISIOISIN to break at least 7 of Nox's 10 rules.
But hold on now. How does the maid get around the paint that's fallen over?
They spill the paint after they've killed her.
What?
Because they have a recording, which means that they can play the tape about the paint having been spilled over the phone, finish setting up the crime scene after the earthquake, and it's all sorted.
But don't you think we should argue for at least 10 pages about how the paint could have been spilled by someone instead of an earthquake?
This earthquake wherein it is quite explicitly pointed out that basically nothing fell over.
Don't you think that we need to talk about the principle of causality?
It makes so much sense that we have to spend half of my day wasting time talking about what else possibly could have got this paint onto the ground.
Also, I'm going to have to deduct points because you didn't use any Latin phrases to explain how paint can fall without an earthquake.
Sorry, I need to come up with a Nietzsche quote.
Please
to rebut,
don't. That's how the book
to
opens.
rebut this point.
Also, why decapitation? Why character head go off and where head? Even I won't accept a reasoning that clunky. Come on.
I'm just trying to think here what the
It's in the title of the book.
Second most likely option is.
Yeah.
Because I got to save the most likely option for my actual theory next week.
Of course you are.
So I'm going to say that Kanami, as well as being a great painter, is also a great makeup artist, and so has actually been involved in killing Teriko in her place and is now got makeup on and is acting as Teriko.
That makes sense to me.
Please pay no attention to the fact that that doesn't fit in at all with the rest of my theory.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
Doesn't make any sense at all.
That's fine. You know what?
This is Death of the Reader, your murder mystery world tour here on 2SER 107.3.
Next week, we are reading up to Fifth Day to Lie. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I don't know why you sounded so panicked, as though I was about to not ask you exactly that.
Should have done it faster. It's Too late.
How can I do it faster when you're undercutting me?
You had to do it faster.
I'm gonna decapitate you for
You have to
this
do better
insolence.
foreshadowing. Yeah, fifth day to lie.
This is Death of the Reader, your murder mystery world tour here on 2SER 107.3. We'll be back with NISIOISIN's Decapitation from the Zaragoza series. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to 2SER 107.3. We're out of here.